Thank you very much, Anya. Have a seat. Let me call up. We'll have a very quick discussion because I do know that lunch it's waiting for us. Yes. But I'm going to call up Kopano Maropeng as well for this one, Head of Communications and Employee Engagement at Blue Label Telecoms, as well as Lizelle Revel, I think. She's a talent manager at Blue Label Telecoms. So, ladies, thank you. Thank you very, very much for being with us today. Are you going to sit? Have a seat anywhere? I'll sit over here. There we go. Anya, thank you so much for what you spoke about the whole culture and when you go into a company. I was jealous when I listened to the reception you received on your arrival there, because a lot of people don't. You don't get that. You don't get that culture at companies anymore. It's a horrible thing. Kopano, let me come to you now and just ask you. What would you say is the link between inclusivity and organizational performance, I should say?
Let's start first with what inclusivity is. Yeah. Inclusivity is how people feel coming into work. Anya touched on that in his speech. It's people knowing how they fit into the organization and what their contribution is to the success of the organization. It's how people relate in the workplace. And if people do not feel a part or a sense of belonging in the workplace, it's much difficult for them to perform at their peak. So if you feel included, you are more likely to perform at your utmost. Yeah. If you feel you're valued, if you feel a sense of belonging, if you feel that your ideas matter, and genuinely so, you're more likely to perform at your highest.
Yeah, indeed, and that's obviously a fact. I suppose it doesn't matter what industry you're in, that helps your performance. But Lizelle, for you, what does inclusivity actually do to contribute to increased creativity and innovation within different teams in an organization?
Let me first say, Leanne, it's very different sitting up here. The sound
is
different,
isn't it?
So just adjusting to that. Okay, so what does inclusivity do to actually improve creativity and innovation? So as Kopano said, I think it starts with the foundations, and there are a few that needs to be in place. And it is an organization creating an environment where people do feel valued and respected, like you said, Kopano. So that's empathy. And empathy is such a core fundamental in building inclusion. Particularly because we're moving into a space of AI and robotics where the emotions is removed, we need to become more invested in empathy. I think where inclusion is a part of the organization's culture, people feel they can show up as the best versions of themselves. And only when you show up as the best version of yourself can you then perform at an optimum level, as Kopano said. I think it starts with that. And when people feel like they are able to perform at peak levels, then we can ascend and add on a layer of creativity and innovation.
Yeah, cultural diversity, I suppose, is a very important one. And I know we had a question a bit earlier in the other panel where we were talking about bringing that culture, bringing a new culture in, whereas the people in the old culture are fighting to keep that culture. And how do you do that? And it's quite a different one, because you may come in as a high performer, and maybe Anya, I can bring you into it this way, but you may be this high performer and you're doing exceptionally well in your last company or in your last job or as an individual, but then you walk into another company who has a completely different culture and you struggle. You struggle there because nobody wants to change. How do you balance that?
That's it's an impossible question to ask.
It is.
I'll let you know.
It is.
No, I think that, basically, what does everybody want is they want to be able to be themselves wherever they go.
Yeah.
We don't want to wake up and feed our kids and be with our family and then walk through the work door and have to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole point of it, is can I be the best me I can be, the most authentic version and the most successful version of me, and will the culture allow that? I think, HR is full of PowerPoint presentations and proof, and we're always now trying to find an ROI so that finance will buy into us. But it's actually, if you just think about us as humans, we're all human.
Yeah.
We all actually want the same thing. We all want psychological safety. We want to learn, we want to grow, we want to develop, we want to be liked, we want to be included, and we want to be ourselves. You know, so culture doesn't mean everyone who comes to work here must subscribe to this. It means everyone who works here, yes, we have to have a shared vision and values, but you're allowed to be you, and I'm allowed to be me, and I'm going to respect who you are and our differences. And I think that if we approach it from a much more human, basic level, without all of the fluff and the research, then you can start reaching people, because there's certain human things that all of us require, that we're actually all the same, although we come from different worlds, different beliefs, different backgrounds, everything's different, but there's some common elements that we all need. And if we focus on that, then we get the foundation built.
Yeah, I mean that's the right way to look at it. But there are certain company cultures that just don't see it that way, and it's a very difficult conversation to have. But I mean, if I can, in terms of Kopano, looking at some of those common challenges that organizations face when trying to build this inclusive culture, what are they, and how do we address those challenges?
I think a lot of the speakers did touch on this, and it goes across. I mean, even the previous speaker that we had, they talked about biases.
Yeah.
Unconscious biases, those are things that we come with as a people from where we are from, our backgrounds, and those really are a challenge in how you perceive people and the stereotypes that you put on people. And automatically, we do that without even putting a second thought into it. So that's one of the challenges that also guides how inclusive a culture can be, or an organization can be. You're trying to build this organization that's high-paced, where everybody feels a sense of belonging, but you still have pockets of leaders that are like, but this is, in my opinion, my people do this, or this type of person, because of their background, my assumption is this. So how do we deal with those unconscious biases? That is a big challenge, because it's an internal thing. How do I deal with a bias?
Yeah.
What is bias? Let's start first. How we need to start educating people, our employees, that on biases, because we can't say to them, deal with your unconscious bias. What does that mean? What is an unconscious bias? Because it's something I don't even put a thought to.
Yeah.
So we need to educate people on what are the biases and how, and provide the support in dealing with those biases, training, forums, workshops, things like that. So for me, that big challenge is first the biases.
Yeah, and being called out for it.
And being called out for it, definitely.
And really, it's so important. I mean, there was, Anya, you said something about, you can be given a whole bunch of negative feedback or criticism, but there's that one that'll really get to you because you know it true of yourself. There's a saying, and I don't know how it goes, and I'm going to misquote it, but it was, when you see something that you dislike in someone else, it's actually a reflection of you and them. And I feel that sometimes, and I hate that, but I want someone to call it out so that I can fix it up. And it's important. People need, and I think if a leader cannot accept that kind of stuff, they don't deserve to be a leader. And that's the reality.
Yeah.
Lizelle, very quickly, I know we've got to wrap this up, but let me just ask you, in terms of leaders, how do they play a pivotal role in promoting this sustainability and inclusivity within their teams?
So, Leanne, leaders set the tone for culture in organization. And actually, I want to just bring a personal story that just happened a couple of minutes ago, because I feel like inclusion and culture is not a once-off thing. We don't talk about once a year. It has to be lived.
Every day.
It has to be a way of being.
Yeah.
And I think Anya reminded us of that earlier when we were sitting in the room there, and we were like, going through our notes, and we were stressed and a little bit anxious about coming up here. And she just said to us, it's okay to be human. It's okay to make mistakes. And that kind of settled our our anxiety about being here. And that's what leaders are supposed to do, is show up in every single circumstance and make people feel comfortable and make people feel included.
Yeah, and especially in a country like this. And I know every one of you have emphasized it. It is so important to have that culture embedded within every single one of us, because not everybody has that same privilege. There are so many people out there that fight. They battle to get through every single day, from the moment they wake up until the moment they sleep. And there are just leaders that don't care. And that's a very, very big problem. Ladies, that was amazing, and I know it was short, but I just think it's such an important conversation. But Anya, I think you gave us a great talking point to begin with, and I'm going to leave this panel here for now, because I do know that we need to take a break for lunch, and this lunch, if I can ask you to keep it to 45 minutes, that would be really great for us to help us catch up on a bit of time, because we are about 20 minutes now running behind schedule. So if you can, please, 45 minutes, watch your clock. If I can get you all back here at about 2:30 or just before 2:30, so we can start at 2:30. All you need to do is that lunch is actually in the restaurant on the left. So it's go past the registration desk and you'll be directed to go there. And also remember to visit the showcase area if you can. But please, let's give my panelists a big final round of applause. Anya Kopano and Lizelle. This one brought to you by Blue Telecom. So thank you very, very much for them. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. Eh?
I define you for this, I know 'cause I